we've had quite a ride. Lots of stories there, lots of testimony, and for the past, I think about 6 years, we've been in Kihei, which is the south side of Maui, and we just have a heart for lost people. We have a heart, the Great Commission. This is helping people say yes to God and reaching as many people as we can. So we're really evangelistic in that way, and that's just our heart to love everybody that God brings our way. And then you had a question about what it is
So
like.
tell,
Yeah.
yeah. So, well, I first wanted to just share what I think is amazing because if you're not following them, they're on Instagram, and they're also on Rumble, and they're also on YouTube. They do, but where their view is absolutely amazing. It's on a third floor and it's open air. So as they're worshiping behind, you get to look out at the actual beautiful Hawaii. So why don't you walk us through whatever you feel led is important, Amber, you want to share about what is currently going on, what you guys have been doing. I know that you had a news station come on, actually came to the service. So maybe let's start
Hmm.
with that and then kind of share what you guys are all, your church is partnering with the community and all that you're doing right now to help the people of Maui that have been affected and are survivors of this.
Yeah. So that's a lot right there. So as far as the news, we had on Saturday night, I got a call from Fox. I'm not, excuse me, not Fox, NBC News, Los Angeles, and they said they wanted to come to church and get a feel for how we're all doing. And so they came Sunday morning, and it was really neat to see them stay throughout the whole service and get blessed by it, whether or not they're believers or not. It was really neat to have them there. They were very respectful, and my husband was able to share just some hope regarding this tragedy and in pain and suffering. And he talked about just real shortly how trials and bad times fall on the good and bad alike. The difference is when we have God, we have a hope, and what we do with that, those troubles. So that was really neat. That was unexpected. So that was kind of fun. Um, but yeah, no one had expected that this would happen. I didn't even think the winds were going to be that crazy because the hurricane is supposed to pass south of us. And all of a sudden, all of Maui is on fire. We had Lahaina, we had upcountry, we had where I live, which is Kihei. So pretty much almost every area was on fire. And I think someone said there was like 7 different fires that happened that they were trying to put out. So if it was one fire, that's one thing where it'd probably be more, possible to put out somewhat quickly. But if you think about that many fires to try to get all that put out by different firehouses, it's a little daunting. So, and we're all finding out about this too on social media here on Maui, and just seeing some photos from earlier in the day. Just looked really windy. I mean, roofs were flying off, and that sort of thing. Where I was living, it wasn't so bad yet, but we did have our window broken by a palm branch that flew. It was just they're just like huge gusts, and it broke all the glass in the kitchen. I mean, that was the extent for us, and but Lahaina was just getting pounded and pounded, and Kula upcountry, they really got hurt as well. Not to the extent of Lahaina, but it was bad. And I everyone that I know survived. My uncle and my cousins, they did lose their homes in Lahaina. Thankfully, they got out in time due to some quick thinking, but it took them about 5 hours to get out with the bumper to bumper, the traffic jam. Lahaina actually had a fire earlier that morning. I think it was like around 6, between 6 and 7 a.m., and they had put it out but it wasn't fully contained. And so what I had heard is that they left the area, which you're not supposed to do. If there was a fire, you're supposed to make sure that there's no flare ups and that sort of thing. I feel like people on the mainland are getting the information in pieces and late, compared to us here on the ground, and I think more information is coming out a little bit, but so they knew the winds were going to be pretty high, like huge gusts, and I guess from different fires in California, I don't know, Paradise and areas like that. Now they have it in the law where you're supposed to turn off the electricity, I believe. So that didn't happen. The electric company left the power on with roofs flying off and power poles being blown over, and it was a big mess. And also, the fire hydrants had no water in them, and so all these things are coming out. It's insane. My cousin I spoke to when we spoke to on the phone, excuse me, um, she was giving me everything and all the details, and she was saying that no one, no one was sounding any sort of alarm as far as um, the police or whoever. No one told them what was going on. They just had to like go off of instinct. And there's this kind of bypass. It's not a huge highway, but it's just a bypass that goes kind of um, up the mountain, and then there's another way to go like alongside the coast. But people were like pushing them back down towards where Lahaina is, and there's just no organization, obviously. But another thing that had happened was that we have here in Hawaii, we have tsunami alarms, that they have in case there's a tsunami. So they're just like they test them once a month, and those were not sounded at all to let people know that that it was an emergency. And so we had a county official just resign who was in charge of emergencies, um, saying that he didn't regret sounding the alarm. And those alarms can be used for anything, though. They can be used for fires or whatever. And so people are kind of they're obviously upset about that because more lives may have been able to be saved. If you think about Lahaina, Front Street, we have a lot of restaurants and businesses, and people are indoors. They're not really knowing what's going on outside. So if we got a text, we didn't get a text saying this is what's going on. Take cover. If it's going to be windy, a lot of unfortunately, a lot of people who are victims are kids because they closed the schools down that day because it was too windy. And so many of the kids stayed home while the parents worked. So we don't have all the information now, but most likely, most of the victims are going to be children, which is super sad. And another thing that is not talked about is the death count is going to be closer to 500 to 1,000. Um, and I think they've searched about 50% of the area for remains. We have about 1,000 people who are missing, who aren't accounted for. So just to kind of give you perspective. Also, I think what's been beautiful about Maui is just the aloha. As soon as this happened, all hands, aloha, Vera, all hands were on deck, and helping, getting people supplies, getting people somewhere to stay. And so it was really neat to see Maui coming together. What was difficult is we were being prevented from going into Lahaina. So what had happened, some people got out of Lahaina and they're in shelters. And then there are some people who are stranded over there, even right now, who have no gas, have no transportation, and they don't have internet, they don't have electricity. Some of that stuff is starting to trickle in, like they just set up some towers to get like spotty reception. But anyways, they were saying that electricity, the grid, is going to take several years to get that back to where it was. But so we have some people over here, and then we have in shelters, and then we have some people in Lahaina who are stuck. And so we weren't allowed to get into Lahaina. So it's not really easy. And you think about an island, there's really one way in, one way out. There's another way that's very kind of treacherous. It's behind the mountains, and you can go that way, but it's a little more windy and there's cliffs. But so people are being turned away with supplies. Like we're talking about basic supplies just to live. Toilet paper, food, obviously, um, tents, sleeping bags, requests for
Probably
propane,
tents.
yeah, all that. So, but being turned away, my husband, Stefan, was able to sneak past and get through with his friend in a truck, and they were able to deliver things. Then we were able to get on it's God's favor because a lot of people want to help but are not able to do some of, you know, um, I'd say kind of cool way of helping is we have a friend who has a snorkel business, and so they have a boat, and so we were able to load the boat with supplies. People just showed up with supplies, and my husband was able to go a couple times via boat, and it's just beautiful to watch the aloha. So in that manner, it's been really cool but frustrating because people want to help and we can't help. We have family on the other side, but we can't help. They're not allowing us to. Um, last I had heard they opened up the highway temporarily, I think for a few hours for traffic to come through. But things change moment by moment, So right now, I think most people are finding temporary places to stay. And I have to remind you that Maui's been in a housing crisis for a long time. So we really have no place to permanently house these people. Um, so right now, it's wonderful because we have owners for these vacation homes or these apartments who say you can stay here, for free until and each situation is different. That's what makes it challenging is because um, Maui is still open except for the west side. And so we still have to be able to accommodate people who are visiting. So if these are a lot of Airbnbs and such, you have to consider that these families who are staying there, they have to move every couple weeks. That's tough. And I've already heard rumors of people moving off island. We want people to stay here on the island um, to help with economy. We have to get people back to work. Um, I'm even hearing people who weren't directly affected by the fires are being laid off because no one's coming to Maui. So it's really tricky. I know God is bigger than all this and he's able. But at some point, these people are going to have to find permanent homes or they're going to end up moving off the island. So our hope is that they stay here on the island and we can help people. I feel like the immediate needs, especially the first week, I already feel like people are kind of losing steam a little bit, not because they don't care, but people have to go back to work and their bodies give out on them. And, so I'm already starting to see that, but this is a long road. This is a long road to recovery and healing. Um, Physically, the building of stuff and getting people back, but there's also the mental and spiritual. This is obviously huge spiritual battle. Um, so our heart, like I said, going back to what's needed. I've been getting a lot of calls from people saying, "What can I do? I can send supplies over. I can come over and help." And honestly, I feel like Maui's done a great job of taking care of the people with those sort of needs. Food, supplies, it's covered. Um, my heart is the long term, the healing and getting people back on their feet where they're working and they're in a permanent home. Um, that sort of thing. And as far as help on the other side, it's so hard to know right now because even our own people are trying to get involved, but there's so many roadblocks, there's so many unknowns. I think as the coming weeks, we'll know more and how to help. And right now, they're still searching for dead bodies to kind of give you an idea. There's no cleanup; it's just identifying them and making sure to notify next of kin. So I think I kind of summed it up. It's been a challenge here, and I think it's good for people to know what we're facing on the ground, because I know in a week or two people will go on about their lives while we're still trying to rebuild.
Awesome. Sorry, I was responding on I use my phone sometimes a little because I noticed quite a few people are on my personal page. So I just wanted to tell you, share that. Please let's share this because I really wanted to have her on because I've been hearing the behind the scenes that are going on, but I know a lot of people aren't. And I know that and I'm going to drop all the links in here. There's a link that actually will take you to kind of a really cool newsletter they've done, which it's a virtual one. So it shows all the news articles that were done. There's two ways that you can support them. And I'm going to ask Amber to share a little bit more. But one of the things that normally happens is the needs change, like a lot. Every time I've been involved in this, it's like the very beginning things. And I would say this situation does remind me of the Paradise Fire, as they didn't have they weren't an island though, but their entire town was pretty much no one was left in the town. It was pretty part of Miguel, like they all had to get out. The roads were there's only one road in and one road out, and it was pretty much a lot of it was melted away, the asphalt and things like that. And so not everybody could stay in the nearest town, which was Chico. So there were people in Redding, where I grew up, and my cousins all ended up there, and a lot of people, and they were kind of left out. And so I know it just is, there's so much at once that